She made a scene at the cafe and scolded the wrong millionaire. And his mother wanted her as a daughter-in-law. Before we get into the story, let us know in the comments what city you're watching from. And when we're done, don't forget to rate the story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. Of course it's him, ridiculous red suit, slicked back hair, and a flower in the lapel, she muttered to herself, hiding behind the window of the fancy cafe on Park Avenue. On the other side of the glass, seated elegantly at the window table, was a man in a bright red suit and a blonde woman who was laughing far too loudly. Scarlett didn't need more proof. This was Mark, her best friend Lisa's fiancé. And just as she suspected, he was cheating, in broad daylight, no less, in the same cafe where he was supposed to have brunch with Lisa just a week earlier. Jerk, lowlife, coward, she whispered, marching toward the entrance of the restaurant. Scarlett wasn't one to watch injustice in silence. If Lisa didn't have the courage to confront the cheater, Scarlett had 3 times that. And today was about justice. Or at the very least, one serious scene. She walked in with purpose, her heels echoing on the marble floor. A waiter tried to stop her, but she dodged him like a heat-seeking missile. There he was, red suit, slick hair, sitting at the table with an elegant gray-haired woman who carried herself like royalty. Scarlett stopped right in front of the table, took a deep breath, and shouted, "Mark, you rotten, shameless cucumber, you cheap traitor." Heads turned. The waiter froze. Somewhere in the back, a fork hit the floor. As if cheating on Lisa wasn't enough, now you dress like this? A red suit? Who do you think you are? The Santa Claus of betrayal. And you, ma'am, no offense, all right? But with all due respect, you're elegant, refined, your hair shines like something out of a shampoo commercial. But don't you think you're a little too old for him? I mean, quite a bit, because my friend is young, truly young, no Botox, and she doesn't look like a retired Chanel executive. The man blinked, confused. The woman choked on her tea. "Excuse me, who are you?" the man asked, clearly surprised. Scarlett didn't flinch. "Don't pretend you don't know me, Mark. I'm Scarlett, Lisa's friend, the one you swore to love, respect, and take to Paris, but you never did." The woman chuckled. "Scarlett, is it?" she said with a refined accent and an amused expression. "My dear, you just yelled at the wrong man, and what a delightful mix-up. You've just gone up in my estimation." "Wait." Scarlett blinked. "What?" "This is my son, Grant Costa, and we don't know any Lisa. In fact, he's not engaged to anyone. He's single, very much single, if I may say so." Scarlett's eyes widened. The color drained from her face. She looked again. The man in the red suit had green eyes, definitely not Mark's. And the nose? Narrower. The hair? Darker. Oh no. She slowly turned her head to another table, 2 rows back, where the real Mark, also in a red suit, was laughing with a blonde woman. And when he saw her, he slipped away quietly. She had made a scene at the wrong table. "Oh," she said, her voice now barely a whisper. "Well, that's kind of embarrassing." "Kind of?" Grant muttered, trying to hide a smile. But before Scarlett could run out the door or disappear into the floor, the older woman stood up with a gleam in her eyes. "What's your full name, dear?" "Scarlett Miller." She took Scarlett's hand firmly and announced loud enough for everyone to hear. "Scarlett Miller. A star's name. A storm of a personality. You're perfect." "Perfect for what?" Scarlett asked, still in full panic mode. "To set my son straight." "What?" "That's right. I'm Elena Costa, mother of the rotten cucumber. I mean Grant. And my dear, if anyone on this earth can straighten this boy out, it's you." Grant coughed. "Mom, please." "No, Grant, I mean it. You surround yourself with fake socialites and yes-men in suits. And today, for the first time in years, someone told you the plain truth. I loved it." Scarlett blinked 3 times. "Is this really happening?" "Yes. And tell me, are you single?" "Yes, but what?" "Perfect," Elena said, clapping her hands. "Scarlett Miller, you're going to marry my son." The entire cafe choked. Grant choked. Scarlett choked so hard she coughed. "Is this some kind of prank?" she asked, looking around, expecting to see a hidden camera crew. "Not at all, I'm completely serious. You are exactly the kind of woman my son needs. Spontaneous, honest, hilarious, and bold enough to yell in a crowded cafe. You're practically a modern miracle." Grant, now as red as his suit, tried to protest. "Mom, this is insane. You don't even know her." "We know enough. Grant, if you don't marry her, I'll disown you. And Scarlett, if you don't accept I'll sue you for defamation and perjury for calling my son a rotten cucumber in front of 36 witnesses. What? That's insane. Maybe. But this is my family. Welcome, dear. Fine, I accept, Scarlett said, resigned, still not quite believing what was happening. Elena Costa clapped her hands enthusiastically, while Grant rubbed his face, clearly questioning his life choices. The cafe was still completely silent, with every customer watching the scene as if it were a live soap opera episode. Excellent, Elena exclaimed. Tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon, at the Madison Avenue Registry Office. Nothing fancy, just the necessary paperwork. Grant, you bring the witnesses. Mom, this is crazy, Grant muttered. Crazy is you being 32 and not having one decent girlfriend. Scarlett's going to be the best thing that's ever happened to you, you'll see. Scarlett left the cafe in shock, walking through the streets of Manhattan as if she were in a strange dream or a nightmare. She still wasn't sure. The cold wind hit her face, bringing her back to reality. She had just agreed to marry a complete stranger. 20 minutes later, she was at the door of the apartment she shared with Lisa. Her friend was on the couch, watching Netflix and eating popcorn. Lisa, you won't believe what happened, Scarlett said, tossing her purse on the floor. Let me guess, you got yourself into some kind of trouble? Lisa paused the show, turning to her with interest. Worse. Much worse. I made a scene, but with the wrong man. What do you mean? Scarlett flopped onto the couch next to her friend and told the whole story, from when she saw Mark with another woman to the cafe incident, and finally Elena Costa's crazy proposal. With every detail, Lisa's eyes grew wider. Wait. Lisa grabbed her friend's hand. You're telling me that Mark, that shameless guy, was cheating on me, and some rich lady decided you were perfect for her son just because you yelled at him in public? Basically, yes. And you agreed to marry him? She threatened to sue me, and he was going to lose his job. What was I supposed to do? Lisa stayed silent for a few seconds, processing it all. Then she started laughing. First quietly, then louder and louder until she was laughing uncontrollably. Lisa, this isn't funny. No, sorry, she said, wiping tears from her eyes. It's just only you, Scarlett. Only you could turn revenge on a cheater into an arranged marriage. Thanks for the moral support, Scarlett muttered. But look at the bright side. At least you won't have to share an apartment with me anymore. And from what you said, he's good-looking, right? Lisa. Relax, I'm kidding. But seriously, you said it's temporary, so don't stress. Sign the papers, live together for a while, and then you two get divorced. Simple. Lisa grabbed her phone and dialed a number. What are you doing? Calling that jerk Mark. If I'm going to be maid of honor at a whirlwind wedding, I might as well get rid of my own problem first. The call connected and Lisa put it on speaker. Hi, honey. Mark's voice came from the other end. Mark, we need to talk. Lisa said firmly. What's up? I'm breaking up with you. What? You heard me. I'm ending our relationship. Right now, over the phone. Lisa, you're crazy. We were doing fine. Were we? Because you were at the Park Avenue Cafe with some blonde. Care to explain? How did you find out? Doesn't matter how. What matters is you're a cheater. Goodbye, Mark. Lisa hung up and turned to Scarlett with a satisfied smile. There. Now I can fully focus on your marriage drama. The next day, Scarlett stood in front of the Madison Avenue Registry Office, wearing the only decent dress she owned, a simple navy blue one she used for job interviews. Lisa stood beside her, serving as witness and moral support. I still can't believe you're really doing this, Lisa murmured. Neither can I, Scarlett replied, nervously adjusting her hair. Grant arrived right at 2 o'clock, accompanied by a middle-aged man who introduced himself as James, his personal lawyer. He wore a perfect gray suit and had an expression somewhere between resignation and disbelief. Well, let's get this over with, he said, shaking Scarlett's hand formally. Where's the romance? Lisa muttered, earning a sharp glare from Scarlett. The ceremony lasted exactly 15 minutes. They signed papers, exchanged a few required words with the officer, and that was it. They were officially married. They didn't even exchange rings. Congratulations, James said as he put the papers away. You're now legally husband and wife. How exciting, Grant said sarcastically. 2 hours later, Scarlett was standing at the door of an apartment in Carnegie Hill, holding her 2 suitcases and questioning every decision that had brought her there. Welcome to your new temporary home, Grant said, opening the door. The apartment was stunning. High ceilings, huge windows with a view of Central Park, modern and expensive decor. It was 3 times the size of the place she shared with Lisa. "Wow," she murmured as she slowly stepped inside. "The guest room is down the hall to the right. It has its own bathroom. Feel free to decorate it however you like." "Guest room? You didn't think we'd be sharing a bedroom, did you? This is a marriage of convenience, not a honeymoon." "Right, of course." In the following days, an odd routine began between them. Grant left early for work, came home late, and they barely saw each other. But when they did, it was always a comedy of small misunderstandings. On the first morning, Scarlett woke up early and decided to make breakfast. She found the most high-tech kitchen she had ever seen, with appliances that looked like they belonged in a spaceship. She tried to make pancakes and almost set the apartment on fire when she couldn't figure out how to turn off the fancy stove. Grant came running down in his pajamas, thinking it was a real fire. "What are you doing?" he shouted, turning off the fire alarm. "Trying to make breakfast? How was I supposed to know this stove has more buttons than an airplane? That's a $15,000 professional stove." $15,000 for a stove? You could have bought a car." "I have 3 cars." "Of course you do." On the second day, Scarlett decided to rearrange the living room because, according to her, it had no life. Grant came home from work and found all the furniture in different spots. "You moved everything around," he said, standing at the door. "I made it better. Now there's more energy, more movement. Before it looked like a home decor magazine, no soul." "I liked it the way it was." "Grant, you had the books organized by color." "By color? Who does that?" "Organized people. People with no imagination. Look, now they're sorted by topic, much more useful." Grant looked at the messy shelves and sighed. "You're going to drive me crazy." "Probably," she said, smiling, "but at least you won't die of boredom." On the third day, Grant tried to get back at her by messing with her closet. Scarlett found all her clothes rearranged by type and color. "Seriously?" she yelled from the bedroom. "You organized my clothes?" "Thought you'd like it," he replied from the living room, trying not to laugh. "Grant, I had a system. Work clothes were separate from weekend clothes, which were separate from gym clothes. Now they're organized logically." "Logically for who? A robot?" But every time Grant tried to get under her skin, Scarlett responded with good humor and creativity. When he hid the TV remote, she figured out she could control everything from her phone. When he swapped the sugar with salt, she made salty lemonade and said it was a new Southern recipe. Meanwhile, Elena Costa was busy with her own plans. In her elegant Manhattan office, she was signing important documents. "Are you sure about this, Mrs. Costa?" her lawyer Richard asked. "Absolutely. I want 20% of Costa Tech shares transferred to Scarlett Miller Costa, today." "She doesn't even know your son is the president of the company, does she?" "She'll find out at the right time. And when she does, I want her to have real power to support him, or to keep him in check, if needed." "You're playing a dangerous game." Elena smiled mysteriously. "Dear Richard, I don't play games. I orchestrate destinies." The papers were signed, stamped, and filed. Scarlett Miller Costa now owned a sizable share of one of New York's biggest tech companies, without having any idea her life was about to change completely. Back at the apartment, Scarlett and Grant were in the kitchen trying to decide what to order for dinner. "Pizza," Scarlett said. "Sushi," Grant said at the same time. They looked at each other, and for the first time since the wedding, they laughed together. "Pizza with sushi for dessert?" she suggested. "You're insane," he said, but he was smiling. "And you're starting to like it," she replied, and Grant didn't know what to say, because maybe, just maybe, she was right. The following Monday, Scarlett returned to work at the Meridian Hotel with a strange sense of normalcy. Even though she had gotten married just a week earlier, her professional routine hadn't changed. Arriving at 8 a.m., organizing corporate events, and making sure everything ran smoothly in the hospitality department. What she didn't expect was to find a familiar figure standing at the main reception desk, wearing a flawless black suit and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Malfada Winters," Scarlett murmured, stopping abruptly in the hallway. Malfada Winters. Her college classmate, a declared rival since day one, And now, apparently, her new boss, the woman who had always competed with her over everything. Grades, internships, boyfriends, even lipstick color. Scarlett Miller, Malfada exclaimed, walking toward her with careful steps. What a wonderful surprise to find you here. Still working as an event coordinator, I assume? Hello, Malfada, Scarlett replied, keeping her tone neutral. I didn't know you were in New York. Oh dear, a lot has changed since college. I was promoted to general manager of this hotel 2 weeks ago. Which means, she paused dramatically, I'm now your boss. Malfada's smile was full of satisfaction. Scarlett felt a knot in her stomach, but didn't show it. Congratulations on the promotion, she said politely. Thank you. And speaking of changes, I've heard some interesting rumors about you. Word is you got married recently? What was his name again? Grant something. Scarlett frowned. How did Malfada know about her marriage? Grant Costa, she answered cautiously. Oh right, Costa. Interesting name. And what does he do? He works in tech. How vague. Well, regardless, I hope your personal life won't interfere with your professional performance. We have very high standards here. Before Scarlett could answer, a familiar male voice spoke behind her. Malfada, I don't believe it. Scarlett turned around and saw Mark, Lisa's ex-boyfriend, walking over with a broad smile. He was wearing a navy blue suit and carrying a leather briefcase. Mark, Malfada opened her arms dramatically. What a wonderful coincidence. What are you doing here? He asked, hugging her. I'm the new general manager. And you? I was just hired as the hotel's financial consultant. I'll be handling all the audits and cost-benefit analyses. Scarlett watched the exchange and felt something was off. The coincidence was just too big. Scarlett, Mark said, finally noticing her. What a surprise to see you working here. Mark, she replied coolly. Oh, you two know each other? Malfada asked with fake innocence. Mark was dating my best friend until last week, Scarlett explained. Oh, Malfada feigned surprise. How delicate. Well, I hope this doesn't make the workplace uncomfortable. Over the following weeks, it became clear that Malfada and Mark had teamed up with one goal, to make Scarlett's life miserable at the hotel. It started with small things. Malfada would change Scarlett's shifts at the last minute, assign her to events that were impossible to organize alone, and constantly question her decisions in front of other employees. Scarlett, about Thursday's event, Malfada said during a morning meeting. Why did you choose red roses for the decor? Don't you think that's a bit ordinary? The red roses were a specific request from the client. Scarlett replied calmly. And you didn't try to suggest something more refined, more elegant? That's what we expect from our coordinators. Creativity, not just following instructions. Mark, present at the meeting as a consultant, added, Speaking of costs, Scarlett, the Friday event's budget went 12% over. How do you explain that? The client requested last-minute changes to the menu. Everything was documented and approved by the previous management. Previous management? Malfada repeated. Well, now we have new standards. Let's not let this happen again. The sabotage campaign escalated. Malfada began giving Scarlett incorrect information about event times and specifications. Mark would discover financial issues in projects Scarlett was managing, always in front of others. During a major corporate event, they pulled off the most humiliating stunt yet. Malfada told Scarlett that the event would start at 7 p.m. when in fact it was scheduled for 6. When Scarlett arrived an hour late, she found angry clients and chaos everywhere. Scarlett, Malfada shouted theatrically in front of everyone. Where were you? The event started an hour ago. You told me it was at 7, Scarlett said, confused. 6 o'clock, dear. It's always been 6. It's been on the schedule since the beginning. Mark appeared holding a tablet. I can confirm that. Here's the original schedule. It's always been 6. Scarlett looked at the document and saw that it did, in fact, say 6 o'clock. She was sure Malfada had said 7, but she had no way to prove it. This is unacceptable, Malfada went on, raising her voice so everyone could hear. Our clients can't be affected by professional negligence. I wasn't negligent, Scarlett protested. There was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Mark shook his head. Scarlett, this is irresponsibility. How can you coordinate events if you can't even show up on time? The clients whispered among themselves, clearly unhappy. Scarlett felt her face burn with humiliation and anger. She knew it had been a setup, but she couldn't prove it. We'll settle this later, she said, trying to keep her dignity. Right now, I need to make sure the event runs perfectly. And it did. Even arriving late, Scarlett managed to organize everything down to the smallest detail. The event was a complete success, but the damage to her reputation was already done. The next day, Malfada called her into her office. "Scarlett, we need to talk about your performance." "My performance has been excellent, given the circumstances." "Circumstances?" Malfada pretended not to understand. "Dear, you showed up an hour late to an important corporate event. That's unforgivable. You told me it was at 7. Are you suggesting I lied?" Malfada stood up, outraged. "That's a very serious accusation." Mark walked into the office at that moment as if the timing had been rehearsed. "Sorry to interrupt, but I just got a formal complaint from yesterday's clients. They're considering canceling future events at the hotel." "See?" Malfada said. "Your actions have consequences, Scarlett. I'm considering firing you." "You can't fire me over a misunderstanding." "We can, and we will," Mark replied, "unless you have some influence we don't know about." At that exact moment, the office door opened and Elena Costa walked in like an elegant hurricane, wearing a pink Chanel suit and carrying a purse that probably cost more than Scarlett's yearly salary. "Excuse me," she said with that refined accent Scarlett knew so well. "I'm looking for my daughter-in-law, Scarlett Costa." The office fell completely silent. Malfada and Mark froze. "Mrs. Costa," Scarlett said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see how you're adjusting to work, dear. And from what I heard in the hallway, not very well." Elena turned to Malfada with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You must be the manager. I'm Elena Costa, chairwoman of the Costa Group, owner of this hotel." Malfada turned pale. "Mrs. Costa, it's an honor." "Is it? Because from what I just heard, you're threatening to fire my daughter-in-law over a misunderstanding about the schedule." "No, ma'am, it's just that, Mark, isn't it?" Elena turned to him. "Scarlett's best friend's ex-boyfriend? What an interesting coincidence that you work here now." Mark swallowed hard. "Ma'am, Quiet." Elena raised her hand. "Scarlett, dear, do you like working here?" "I do, Mrs. Costa, but it's been challenging." "I can imagine. Well, I have a solution." Elena pulled a folder from her purse. "I just signed your promotion to Vice President of Hotel Operations, effective immediately." "What?" Malfada and Mark exclaimed together. "Vice President," Elena repeated calmly. "That means Scarlett is now your superior, Malfada. And Mark, your services as a consultant are no longer needed." "You're fired." "That's impossible," Malfada protested. "She doesn't have the qualifications to be vice president." "She does now," Elena smiled. "And if you have a problem with that, you can hand in your resignation letter as well." Mark made one last attempt. "Ma'am, with all due respect, but this looks like nepotism." Elena stared at him with icy calm. "Young man, my family built this empire when you were still in diapers. Don't tell me how to run my business." She turned to Scarlett. "Dear, your new office is on the 12th floor. I think you'll have a lot of work reorganizing things around here." Malfada was white as a sheet. "Mrs. Costa, I apologize if there was any misunderstanding." "There was no misunderstanding," Elena said. "There was an attempt to sabotage my daughter-in-law. You have 1 week to prove you deserve to keep working under Scarlett's supervision." Elena kissed Scarlett on the cheek and whispered, "Welcome to leadership, dear. Use it wisely." After Elena left, Scarlett looked at Malfada and Mark, who were still in shock. "Well," she said calmly, "I think we have a lot of work ahead of us. Malfada, I need a full report on all hotel operations on my desk by 9 a.m. tomorrow. And Mark, you can start packing your things." Mark left the office in silence, defeated. Malfada stood there, still trying to process what had just happened. "How?" she murmured. "How did you—" "Malfada," Scarlett said, sitting in the chair that just minutes ago belonged to her rival, "you've always underestimated people. That's always been your weakness." As Malfada walked out of the office, humiliated, Scarlett looked out the window and smiled. She still didn't fully understand everything that was happening in her life. But one thing was certain. Elena Costa was a mother-in-law who knew how to take care of her family. And it looked like Scarlett was starting to realize she had more influence than she ever imagined. 3 weeks after her sudden promotion to vice president, Scarlett was starting to adjust to her new reality. Her office on the 12th floor had a view of Central Park, a mahogany desk that cost more than a car, and a highly efficient assistant named Patricia, who managed her schedule with military precision. Malfada, now working under her, had become the picture of forced professionalism. She arrived early, stayed late, and treated Scarlett with a cold politeness that bordered on comical. According to rumors, Mark had disappeared from New York entirely, supposedly taking a job in Chicago. That Thursday, the Meridian Hotel was hosting the most important event of the quarter, the Hamilton Foundation Charity Gala, which would bring together Manhattan's elite to raise funds for children's hospitals. Scarlett was personally overseeing every detail, from the white orchid arrangements to the 5-course menu created by the most sought-after French chef in town. Around 3 in the afternoon, while supervising the setup in the main ballroom, Scarlett heard raised voices coming from the service hallway. She immediately recognized one of them. Sofia Ramirez, one of the hotel's most dedicated waitresses, always working with a genuine smile and a sharp eye for detail. "That's not true," Sofia said, her voice shaking. "I would never do something like that." "The evidence is clear," replied a harsh male voice that Scarlett recognized as Robert Chen, the food and beverage supervisor. "2 bottles of Dom Perignon champagne are missing from the stockroom, and you were the last one to access it last night." Scarlett walked closer quietly and saw Sofia with red eyes, holding a tissue in her trembling hands. Robert stood with his arms crossed, looking stern, while Malfada watched with barely hidden interest. "Mr. Chen," Sofia said in a broken voice, "I swear on my children's lives I didn't take anything. You've known me for 3 years. I would never steal from this hotel." "Feelings don't change facts," Robert said coldly. "The inventory was complete when you left, and this morning we discovered the bottles were gone. You're the only logical explanation." "But that makes no sense," Sofia protested. "Why would I steal expensive champagne? I don't even drink." Malfada stepped in with a fake concerned smile. "Sofia, dear, I know your financial situation has been tough. 2 small kids, late rent. Maybe you thought selling the bottles could help fix a few problems." "How do you know about my financial situation?" Sofia asked, surprised. "I'm the manager, Sofia. It's my job to know my staff." Scarlett felt her blood boil. She had known Sofia for 2 years and knew she was as honest as they came. She worked 2 jobs to raise her kids on her own after her husband left, and she had never missed a shift or arrived late. "Excuse me," Scarlett said, stepping in. "What's going on here?" "Vice President Costa?" Robert said, quickly changing his tone to one of respect. "We're dealing with a theft. Sofia Ramirez stole 2 bottles of Dom Perignon from our stock." "That's a very serious accusation," Scarlett said calmly. "Do you have solid proof?" Malfada stepped forward. "The circumstantial evidence is clear. Sofia was the last one in the stockroom, and the bottles disappeared during the night." "Circumstantial evidence," Scarlett repeated. "Robert, show me exactly where these bottles were stored." They walked to the climate-controlled stockroom in the basement. Robert pointed to a shelf in the special wine section. "Right there, 3rd shelf. We had 12 bottles for tonight's event. Now we have 10. Scarlett examined the area carefully. "Sofia, tell me exactly what you did here last night." "I came to get the crystal glasses for today's event," said Sofia, still trembling. "They're kept in that cabinet over there. I took 6 boxes, checked to make sure everything was in order, locked the storage room, and left." "What time was that?" 10:30 at night. The night shift didn't start until 11. Scarlett looked around at the storage layout. Something didn't add up. "Robert, who has access to the storage room besides authorized staff?" "Only management and supervisors, and the cleaning crew, of course." "Cleaning crew?" Scarlett raised an eyebrow. "What hours do they work?" "From 11 at night to 6 in the morning." "And did you check with them?" Robert hesitated. "Well, we didn't think that it was necessary. All the evidence clearly points to Sofia." "What evidence?" Scarlett asked, crossing her arms. "So far, all I've heard are assumptions." Malfada stepped in. "Scarlett, I know you want to protect the staff, but we can't ignore the facts." "What facts, Malfada?" Scarlett turned to her with a cold stare. "Give me one solid fact that proves Sofia took anything." "She was the last authorized person in the storage room before the theft was discovered." "So what? That doesn't prove anything." "Robert, bring me a full list of everyone who entered this storage room in the last 48 hours. "Vice President? I don't think." I'm not asking for your opinion. I'm giving you an order. 20 minutes later, Robert returned with a printed report. Scarlett examined it carefully while Sophia waited anxiously, and Malfada tapped her fingers impatiently. Interesting, Scarlett murmured. Sophia went in at 10:30 last night and left at 10:45. But look here. James Mitchell from the cleaning crew entered at 11:15 and there's no record of him leaving. Must be a system error, Robert said quickly. Or maybe James forgot to clock out, added Malfada. That happens all the time. Then let's speak to James, said Scarlett. Patricia, bring James Mitchell to my office right away. 15 minutes later, everyone was gathered in Scarlett's office. James Mitchell was a nervous man in his 50s, sweating heavily despite the air conditioning. James, Scarlett said calmly, were you working in the storage room last night? Yes, ma'am. Just the usual cleaning routine. And do you remember seeing anything unusual? James hesitated, glancing nervously at Robert and Malfada. No, ma'am. Everything seemed normal. Are you sure? Scarlett leaned forward. Because your badge didn't record your exit. Why is that? I forgot to clock out. James, how long have you worked here? 7 years, ma'am. And in 7 years, how often have you forgotten to clock out? James swallowed hard. Rarely, ma'am. Scarlett stood and walked over to the window, thinking. Then she turned around with a determined expression. James, let me ask you something. Where do you live? In the Bronx, ma'am. And how do you get home after your shift? By subway, ma'am. The subway at 6 in the morning must be packed. Hard to carry extra items, right? James began to sweat even more. Yes, ma'am. That's why you left the champagne bottles in your locker here at the hotel, isn't it? So you could come back for them later, when it was less crowded. Silence fell over the room. James looked down, defeated. How did you figure it out? He whispered. Simple logic, Scarlett said. Sophia doesn't drink, she has 2 young children, and an impeccable reputation. She'd never steal something she couldn't even sell easily. You, on the other hand, have unrestricted access to the storage room during the night, when no one is around. Robert was speechless. James, is this true? I need the money, James admitted, breaking down. My wife is sick, and the medication is expensive. Where are the bottles? Scarlett asked, not without compassion. In my locker in the staff room. Scarlett turned to Sophia, who was crying with relief. Sophia, you are completely cleared of any accusation, and I want you to know your job is secure. In fact, I'm promoting you to supervisor of the special events team. Thank you, ma'am. Sophia could barely speak through the emotion. Thank you for believing in me. Robert, said Scarlett, turning to the supervisor, James will be transferred to another department with reduced pay, but he won't be fired. We're going to help him find resources to take care of his wife. As for you, I hope this teaches you to investigate properly before making accusations. Yes, ma'am. I apologize for the mistake. Scarlett turned to Malfada, who was visibly uncomfortable. Malfada, I need to speak with you. Alone. Once everyone had left, Scarlett faced her subordinate. You knew it wasn't Sophia, didn't you? What do you mean? You know every employee's financial situation, remember? Including James's. I bet you knew he was desperate for money. Malfada didn't reply, but her expression confirmed Scarlett's suspicion. You let Sophia be accused unfairly, hoping I would fire her. Why? Because she's competent and well-liked? Scarlett, you're being paranoid. No, Malfada. I'm being observant. This is your last chance to prove you can work as part of a team. The next time you try to sabotage an innocent colleague, you'll be looking for a job somewhere else. At that moment, the office door opened, and Elena Costa walked in with her usual grandeur, wearing a royal blue Valentino dress and a proud smile. My dear daughter-in-law, she said, kissing Scarlett on the cheek. I just spoke with Sophia in the hallway. She told me everything. Mrs. Costa, what are you doing here? I came for tonight's gala, of course, and good thing I did. I just witnessed a brilliant example of leadership and fairness. Elena turned to Malfada with a frosty smile. Malfada, isn't it? I've heard quite a bit about you. Mrs. Costa, it's an honor, is it? Elena cut her off. Because from what I've seen, you seem to have a tendency to create unnecessary problems. Madam, I was just quiet. Elena raised her hand gracefully. Scarlett, dear, you handled this situation perfectly. Intelligence, compassion, and firmness. Exactly the qualities we expect from our family. Elena opened her Hermes purse and pulled out a sealed envelope. This is for you, a small token of appreciation for your outstanding work. Scarlett opened the envelope and found a legal document. Her eyes widened as she read it. Mrs. Costa, this is a performance bonus equal to 20% of the shares you already own in the company, Elena said casually. Now you have even more stake in the family business. Malfada turned pale. Shares? What shares? Elena smiled mysteriously. Ah, dear Malfada, there's so much you don't know about our Scarlett. She's not just the vice president of this hotel. She's a co-owner of the entire Costa Group. How is that possible? Malfada stammered. It's possible when you marry my son and prove, day after day, that you deserve to be part of this family, Elena replied. Something some people will never understand. Elena kissed Scarlett again. Dear, I need to get ready for the gala. I expect to see you shining tonight, as always. After Elena left, Malfada looked at Scarlett with a mix of shock and envy. You really own part of the company? Apparently, yes, Scarlett said, still processing it. And Malfada, I want you to understand something. I don't use that power to hurt anyone. I use it to protect those who deserve protection and to do what's right. Like Sophia. Like any honest employee who's treated unfairly. Malfada nodded slowly. Scarlett, I'm sorry. I accept your apology, Malfada, but now we need to work together. We have a gala to run, and it's going to be perfect. That night, the Hamilton Foundation Charity Gala was an absolute success. Scarlett moved around the ballroom, receiving compliments from clients and guests, while Elena Costa proudly introduced her as my brilliant daughter-in-law. Sophia, in her new supervisor's uniform, directed the wait staff with efficiency and confidence. James worked quietly in the kitchen, grateful for his second chance. The morning after the gala, Scarlett was in her office reviewing client satisfaction reports when Grant appeared at the door. She still found it strange to see him at the hotel. After all, he had never mentioned having any connection to where she worked. Good morning, wife, he said with an ironic smile, leaning against the doorframe. Grant? What are you doing here? Business, he answered vaguely. Actually, I came to invite you to something. My company is holding an accountability meeting this afternoon, and I'd like you to attend. Scarlett frowned. Why would I go to one of your company's meetings? Because you have experience in hotel management, and we're analyzing investments in the industry. Your perspective would be valuable. Grant, you work in technology, not hotels. Technology applied to many sectors, including hospitality, he said, keeping his tone casual. Do you trust me? Scarlett studied him for a moment. There was something he wasn't telling her, but curiosity got the better of her doubts. All right, what time? 3 o'clock. I'll pick you up here. After Grant left, Scarlett couldn't fully focus on her work. There was something strange in the way he talked about the company, as if he were hiding something important. Around noon, Patricia walked into her office looking concerned. Vice President Costa, there's something I need to tell you. Malfada was going through the computer files this morning. What kind of files? Financial reports, hotel performance data, revenue projections. She printed several documents and left with them. Scarlett felt a chill in her stomach. Thank you for telling me, Patricia. Let's keep this just between us for now. At exactly 3 o'clock, Grant appeared in the hotel lobby wearing a dark gray suit that made him look even more serious and professional than usual. Ready? He asked. Ready. Where are we going? Costa Tower, Financial District. The name sounded familiar, but Scarlett couldn't place it. During the taxi ride, Grant stayed quiet, checking messages on his phone with a focused expression. Costa Tower was an impressive glass and steel skyscraper in the heart of Manhattan. When they stepped into the elevator, Grant pressed the button for the 40th floor. Big company, Scarlett commented. Fairly big, he replied, but there was something in his tone she couldn't quite read. When the elevator doors opened, Scarlett found herself in a sleek hallway with glass walls revealing a large conference room. At least 20 people were already seated around a table the size of a small apartment. Grant, she whispered, this doesn't look like a casual investment meeting. Before he could respond, a receptionist approached them. Mr. Costa, everyone is waiting. Scarlett stopped in her tracks. Mr. Costa? Grant, what's going on here? I'll explain later, he said, guiding her into the room. Just trust me for now. The meeting began with formal introductions. Scarlett was introduced as special consultant in hotel management, but it was clear her presence sparked curiosity among the executives in the room. Everything seemed routine until the CFO, a bald man named Richardson, announced, "We have some concerns about the Hotel Meridian's performance last quarter." Scarlett straightened in her seat. This was her area. "What kind of concerns?" Grant asked. Richardson opened a folder and began reading. "According to the documents we received, there was a 15% drop in customer satisfaction, a 20% rise in operating costs, and at least 3 serious misconduct incidents by management." Scarlett felt the blood drain from her face. She knew those numbers, and they were all wrong. "Excuse me," she said, raising her hand. "May I see those documents?" Richardson hesitated and looked at Grant, who nodded. Scarlett quickly scanned the pages and felt her anger rising. The data had been deliberately manipulated. Numbers were changed, dates altered, entire reports fabricated. "These documents are false," she said calmly. A murmur spread around the room. Richardson looked offended. "Miss Costa, that's a very serious accusation." "Yes, it is," Scarlett agreed, standing up. "And I can prove it." She walked over to the whiteboard on the wall and picked up a marker. "First, let's talk about customer satisfaction. According to our real records, which I can access in real time through the hotel system," she pulled out her phone and opened the hotel platform. "Our satisfaction score rose to 93% this quarter." She wrote the numbers on the board. "Second, operating costs. Yes, they did increase, but only by 5%, due to investments in upgrades that led to that rise in customer satisfaction." Scarlett continued presenting real data, countering each false claim from the documents. Her presentation was clear, logical, and impossible to dispute. "And about the misconduct incidents," she said, turning to face Richardson. "I'd like to know where that information came from, considering there were no reported incidents last quarter." The room fell completely silent. Grant watched with a mix of pride and amusement. "Also," Scarlett added, "to clear up any doubt about my ability to interpret this data, I can present the same report in English, Spanish, and French." She turned to the whiteboard and began writing fluently in all 3 languages, translating each key point of her presentation. The executives watched, clearly impressed. "En español," she said, writing quickly, "nuestros índices de satisfacción han alcanzado el 93%, superando las expectativas del trimestre." Then she switched to French. "En français, nos coûts opérationnels ont augmenté de seulement 5%, ce qui représente un investissement stratégique dans l'amélioration de nos services." When she finished, she turned to the room with a calm expression. "Now, I'd really like to know who provided these false documents and why." Richardson looked visibly uncomfortable. "I received those reports from an external source who identified herself as the hotel manager." "Name?" Scarlett asked coolly. "Malfada Winters." Scarlett nodded, not surprised. "And I imagine this same source suggested I wasn't the right person to represent this meeting?" "Well, yes, she said you didn't have the proper qualifications to." "To what?" Scarlett crossed her arms. "To manage a hotel with a 93% guest satisfaction rate? To organize events that generate millions in revenue? Or to present accurate data in 3 languages?" Grant stood up slowly, and for the first time since they entered the room, he took on a presence Scarlett had never seen in him before. Authoritative, confident, clearly someone used to being in charge. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said firmly, "I'd like to clarify a few things. First, Scarlett Costa is not just a consultant. She is vice president of the Meridian Hotel and my wife." Murmurs filled the room. "Second, anyone who tries to sabotage her reputation or question her competence will be dealing directly with me. And third," he paused for effect, "I hope today made it clear what level of excellence we expect from our team." Richardson looked pale. "Mr. Costa, I didn't know she was your wife." "You do now," Grant said sharply, "and I hope that ends any further doubts about her qualifications." After the meeting, in the elevator going down, Scarlett finally turned to Grant. "All right, now you're going to explain what that was all about." Grant smiled, clearly more relaxed. "That was you proving how brilliant you are." "Grant, they called you Mr. Costa. This is Costa Tech, isn't it?" "It is." "And you're?" "I'm the president of the company." Scarlett leaned against the wall of the elevator. trying to process. You're the president of the company that owns the hotel I work for? Technically, my mother is chair of the board. I just handle day-to-day operations. Grant, why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to shine on your own, which you did, today. The elevator doors opened on the ground floor, but Scarlett didn't move. Did Malfata know you were testing me? No, she genuinely tried to sabotage you by sending those fake reports. She thought she was hurting you and doing me a favor at the same time. Scarlett shook her head, still taking it all in. Your family is more complicated than I thought. Wait until you meet my dad, Grant said with a smile. But today, you are amazing. 3 languages, Scarlett? Really? Hotel management school. Language skills are required. Well, you impressed the whole room, including me. As they walked out of the building, Scarlett looked up and saw the Costa Tower rising majestically against the New York sky. So I'm actually married to the president of one of the biggest companies in the city? Technically, yes. And Malfata tried to sabotage me without realizing she was trying to bring down her own boss's wife? Yes. Scarlett started laughing. At first quietly, then louder and louder. What? Grant asked, puzzled. It's just, poor Malfata. She really has no idea what she got herself into, does she? Grant smiled too. None. But you do. And for the first time since their arranged marriage, Scarlett looked at Grant and thought that maybe, just maybe, being married to him wasn't the worst thing that had ever happened to her. On the way home, they talked more in 30 minutes than they had in all the previous weeks combined. So, Scarlett said, still processing everything, your mother really arranged our marriage knowing exactly who you were and where I worked? Knowing my mother, she probably investigated your entire life before our wedding day. Grant replied, laughing. Elena Costa doesn't do anything by chance. That explains a lot. Like how she knew I worked at the Meridian and about my financial situation. Grant nodded and smiled. They sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the city go by. Finally, Grant turned to her. Scarlett, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you regret it, saying yes to marrying me? She thought carefully before answering. Honestly, in the beginning, yes. I thought you were all completely crazy. But now, I don't know. It's been interesting. Interesting? That's a polite way of saying chaotic, unpredictable, and strangely fun, Grant laughed. That's the best description of my family I've ever heard. And you? Scarlett asked. Do you regret it? Surprisingly, no, he said, looking straight into her eyes. Actually, I wanted to invite you to something else. What kind of invitation? Because if it's for another business meeting, I'd rather not. No, Grant laughed. Dinner. Tonight. A real dinner. Not those weird meals we have at home where we pretend we're just roommates. Scarlett felt something strange in her stomach. Like a date. Exactly like a date. She studied him for a moment. There was something different about Grant since the meeting. Less formal, more genuine. All right, she finally said. But I picked the restaurant. Deal. 3 hours later, Grant was standing at the door of a small Italian restaurant in the village, clearly out of his comfort zone. The place was cozy, with tables far too close to one another and a menu written by hand on a chalkboard. Scarlett, he said when she arrived, are you sure this is the right place? Grant, you've eaten in Michelin-starred restaurants your whole life. Tonight you're going to try real food. The waiter, a genuine Italian named Giuseppe, led them to a tiny table by the window. First time here? Giuseppe asked Grant, his accent thick. Yes, Grant replied, looking nervously at the handwritten menu. Ah, leave it to me then, Giuseppe said excitedly. I'll make something special, Grant whispered to Scarlett. He didn't even ask what we want to eat. That's how it works here. Giuseppe decides what you need to eat based on your face. And what face do I have? Someone who's never eaten homemade pasta in his life. Giuseppe returned with a bottle of red wine and 2 steaming plates of linguine alla vongole. Ecco, he exclaimed, serving generously. Linguine with clams, made the way my nana used to make in Naples. Grant stared at the plate full of clams as if they were aliens. Giuseppe, Scarlett said, my husband here is a little inexperienced with seafood. Husband. Giuseppe's eyes widened. Madonna mia, newlyweds, something like that, Grant muttered. Allora, Giuseppe clapped his hands. Tonight is special. Romance, amore, passione. He disappeared into the kitchen and returned with candles, which he lit dramatically on their table, murmuring something in Italian that was clearly blessings for the marriage. "Scarlett," Grant whispered, "he's making a scene. Relax, it's sweet." Grant tried eating the linguine with knife and fork, as if he were at a formal dinner. Scarlett laughed. "Grant, you're eating pasta, not performing heart surgery. Is there a right way to eat this? Like this?" She showed him, twirling the pasta on her fork with the help of a spoon. "See? Simple." Grant tried to copy her but ended up with half the plate on his chin. Scarlett laughed so hard she almost spilled her wine. "Don't laugh at me," he said, but he was smiling too. "Sorry, but you should see yourself." The great president of Costa Tech defeated by a plate of pasta. Giuseppe appeared again, this time with a small accordion. "Pergli Sposini," he announced, starting to play a romantic Italian song. "Oh no," Grant murmured. "Oh yes," Scarlett said, thoroughly enjoying herself. Giuseppe began to sing in Italian, gesturing dramatically as other customers stopped to watch. Grant was as red as the marinara sauce, but Scarlett clapped enthusiastically. "Bravissimo, Giuseppe," she shouted. When the song ended, the whole restaurant applauded. Giuseppe bowed theatrically and returned to the kitchen. "I'm never letting you pick where we eat again," Grant said, trying to hide behind the menu. "Admit it, it was fun. It was different." "Grant, when was the last time you did something spontaneous? Something that wasn't on your schedule?" He thought for a moment. "Honestly? I don't remember." "That's sad. It's practical. It's boring." Grant looked her in the eyes. "You think I'm boring?" "I used to," she said, smiling. "But you're getting better." After dinner, they walked through the village streets. The night was cool, and Scarlett pulled her coat tighter. "Are you cold?" Grant asked. "A little." Without thinking, he took off his own coat and placed it over her shoulders. The gesture was so natural that both were surprised. "Thank you," she said softly. They stopped in front of a small square with a lit fountain. A few people passed by, but the place was fairly quiet. "Scarlett," Grant said, turning to her, "I need to tell you something." "What is it?" He hesitated, as if gathering courage. "When my mother suggested we get married, I thought she'd completely lost her mind. I thought it would be the worst decision of my life." "Thanks for the vote of confidence," Scarlett said, but she was smiling. "Let me finish," he said, laughing nervously. "I was wrong. Completely wrong." He took a step closer to her. "These past few weeks, watching you work, seeing how you deal with people, how you stand up for those who need it, Scarlett, you made me realize I'd been living only half a life." "Grant." "No, let me finish," he said, his voice growing more intense. "I fell in love with you. Truly. Not because of the arranged marriage, not out of convenience, but because of who you really are." Scarlett felt her heart race. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely," he said, stepping even closer. "The question is, do you feel anything for me, other than pity for the guy who can't eat spaghetti properly?" She laughed, though her eyes filled with tears. "Grant, you're annoying, obsessive, completely unspontaneous, and you organize books by color. That's not sounding very hopeful. But," she went on, placing a hand on his cheek, "you're also kind, smart, you have a smile you hide too much, and you make me feel like I can take on the world." "And that means?" "It means I might have fallen for my crazy husband too." Grant smiled, that genuine smile she was starting to love, and leaned in to kiss her. But at the last second, he tripped on the edge of the fountain. "Grant!" Scarlett caught him before he fell into the water. "Perfect," he said, laughing at himself. "Most romantic moment of my life, and I nearly fall into a fountain." "Idiot," she said affectionately, pulling him close. This time, when he kissed her, there were no stumbles. The kiss started soft, hesitant, like they were still getting used to the idea that this was real. Then it deepened, and Scarlett felt like the entire world had stopped around them. When they finally pulled apart, they were both out of breath. "Wow," she whispered. "That's a good reaction," he said, smiling. "Grant, what if we went home?" "Of course. It's getting late anyway." "No," she said, looking into his eyes. "Home? Together? For real." Understanding slowly spread across Grant's face. "Scarlett, are you sure?" "I'm sure I want to find out what it's really like to be married to you." They walked hand in hand to the apartment, the energy between them shifting from nervous to electric. In the elevator, Grant pulled her close again, kissing her against the wall. "Are you sure about this?" he murmured against her lips. "Grant, stop asking and kiss me." And he did. That night, Scarlett and Grant's arranged marriage finally became something real. And Elena Costa, who at that very moment was having tea in her apartment 3 blocks away, smiled mysteriously to herself, as if she knew exactly what was happening. "Mission accomplished," she whispered, toasting alone with her porcelain teacup. 2 weeks after the night that changed everything between Scarlett and Grant, they were enjoying a quiet breakfast in the apartment when the intercom rang insistently. "Are you expecting anyone?" Grant asked, glancing at the clock. "It's 8 in the morning." "No," Scarlett replied, frowning. "Patricia doesn't work on Saturdays." Grant answered the intercom, and a familiar female voice echoed through the apartment. "Scarlett? It's me, your sister Rachel. We're downstairs." Scarlett nearly dropped her coffee cup. "Rachel? What are you doing in New York?" "Surprise. Can we come up?" Grant looked at Scarlett, who was visibly nervous. "Family?" "My younger sister, and from the sound of it, probably my parents too," she said, running a hand through her hair. "Grant, I haven't spoken to them in almost 2 years." "Why not?" "It's complicated. They didn't approve of my life choices, and I didn't approve of their expectations. You know how it goes." "Want me to leave?" "No," she said quickly. "Actually, I think it's time you met where I come from." 5 minutes later, the apartment door opened, and Scarlett found herself in the arms of a 25-year-old woman with curly hair and a smile just like hers. "Scarlett," Rachel exclaimed, "you look amazing, and this apartment, oh my God." Behind Rachel came Robert and Margaret Miller, Scarlett's parents. Robert was tall and thin, with gray hair and calloused hands that showed a life of manual work. Margaret was delicate, with the same green eyes as her daughter, but a more reserved expression. "Sweetheart," Margaret said, hugging Scarlett gently. "Are you all right?" "I'm great, Mom," Scarlett replied, still trying to process the surprise visit. "But what are you all doing here?" "Oh, right." Rachel turned to Grant, who had been watching everything with interest. "You must be the famous husband. I'm Rachel, Scarlett's younger and favorite sister." "Grant Costa," he said, offering his hand with a smile. "Nice to meet you." Robert stepped forward and shook Grant's hand firmly, clearly sizing him up. "Robert Miller, Scarlett's father. I hear you two got married rather quickly." "Dad," Scarlett said in a warning tone. "It's all right," Grant said diplomatically. "It was a whirlwind romance, that's true." Margaret looked around the apartment, clearly impressed. "Scarlett, sweetheart, this place is very elegant." "Grant has good taste in decorating," Scarlett said, feeling the tension in the air. "And what exactly do you do?" Robert asked, getting straight to the point. "Technology," Grant answered. "I run a company here in Manhattan." Rachel laughed. "Dad, are you getting him the overprotective father-in-law talk? Scarlett's 30. "She's right," Scarlett added. "Come on, have a seat. Can I get you some coffee? Breakfast?" While Scarlett made coffee and Grant tried to break the ice by chatting about the Knicks with Robert, Rachel pulled her sister aside into the kitchen. "Scar, I need to talk to you," she whispered. "We didn't just come to meet your husband." "I figured. What's going on? Remember Mom and Dad's antique shop?" "Of course. Is it still open?" "Not just open, it's thriving," Rachel said excitedly. "Dad found out he has a real talent for restoring old furniture, and Mom started selling online. They've got orders coming in from all over the Northeast." Scarlett gave a genuine smile for the first time since her family arrived. "That's wonderful. I always knew Dad had a gift." "The problem is, they've reached the limit of what they can handle alone. They need to expand, hire people, buy better equipment, but they don't have the capital." "Oh," Scarlett said, finally understanding. "You're asking for a loan." "Not a loan," Rachel said quickly. "An investor. Someone who believes in the business and wants to be a part of it." Scarlett was quiet for a moment. "Rachel, I have some savings, but I'm not sure if—" "We're not asking for your money," Rachel interrupted. "We're asking for your help to find someone who might be interested." They went back to the living room, where Robert was showing Grant photos on his phone. "Take a look at this cabinet I restored last month," Robert was saying proudly. "It was in terrible shape when I found it, but look at it now." Grant studied the photos with genuine interest. "Impressive work, Mr. Miller. How long did it take?" 3 weeks, just working in my spare time. If I did it full time, I could finish one in a week." "And how much did you sell it for?" $1,200. "I bought it for $50. Grant let out a low whistle. That's a great profit margin. Margaret joined the conversation. Grant, the online part of the business grew 300% in the last year. We have a 2-month waiting list for restored pieces. Mom, Scarlett said, surprised, you're running a business now? Your mother's always had a good head for business, Robert said. It just took me 30 years to start listening to her advice. Rachel told Grant about the expansion plans while Scarlett watched her family with new eyes. They weren't the same people she had left 2 years ago. There was a new energy, a clear sense of purpose. I see, Grant said after hearing everything. You need funding to grow, but you want to keep it a family-run business. Exactly, Robert said. We're not looking to sell our soul, just open up more opportunities. Grant stood and walked to the window, thoughtful. Scarlett knew him well enough by now to see that he was working something out in his head. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, he finally said. How about I make you an offer? Grant, Scarlett said, nervous. You don't have to. Let me finish, he said, smiling at her. You need investment. I need to diversify some assets. How about a real partnership? Robert raised an eyebrow. What kind of partnership? Costatech invests $200,000 to help expand your business. You keep 70% ownership, and we take 30%. Along with the money, we'll provide tech consulting to improve your online sales and logistics. The room went completely silent. Margaret held Robert's hand. $200,000? Robert murmured. Son, that's 10 times more than what we thought we needed. With that amount, Grant explained, you could open a second shop, hire a full team, and still have plenty for digital marketing. He turned to Rachel. You studied business, right? Yes, I graduated 2 years ago. Perfect. You'd be our point of contact between Costatech and the family business. Competitive salary, full benefits. Rachel looked at her parents, then at Scarlett, not sure what to say. Grant, Scarlett said, touching his arm, can I talk to you for a minute? Privately? They walked into the bedroom, leaving the Miller family quietly processing the proposal. Grant, that's very generous, but you don't know my father. He's too proud to accept charity. This isn't charity, Grant said seriously. Scarlett, I quickly went over the numbers they mentioned. This business has real potential to grow. High profit margin, rising demand, competitive advantage. It's a smart investment. Are you sure? Absolutely. Besides, he smiled warmly, they're your family, and now they're my family too. When they went back to the living room, Robert was looking at some photos on Margaret's phone. Grant, he said, this offer is very generous, but I have to be honest. I've never worked with corporate investors. I'm afraid of losing control of what I built. I understand completely, said Grant. How about this? We do a 6-month trial period. If you're not happy with the partnership, we'll buy back our share for the amount invested plus 10%. Margaret looked at her husband. Robert, this could be the chance we've been waiting for. And how would Scarlett be involved? Robert asked. As a family consultant, Grant replied immediately. She understands both the business and the personal side. She'd be perfect to make sure the partnership works for everyone. Rachel practically jumped off the couch. Dad, Mom, you have to accept this. This is the opportunity of our lives. Robert looked at Scarlett. Honey, what do you think? Scarlett felt her eyes fill with tears. 2 years ago, when she left home, things had been tense and cold. Now her father was asking for her opinion on an important family decision. I think you've built something beautiful, she said. And I think you deserve the chance to see how far it can go. Robert extended his hand to Grant. Partner, you've got a deal. While Grant and Robert discussed practical details, Margaret walked over to Scarlett. Honey, I want to apologize for how things were when you left home. Mom. No, let me say it. You were right to follow your own dreams. And look what you've achieved. She looked around the apartment, then at Grant. I'm proud of you. Scarlett hugged her mother, feeling as if a weight she had carried for years had finally been lifted. I missed you too, she murmured. Rachel joined the hug. Miller family reunited, and now with a billionaire partner. Billionaire? Scarlett asked, looking at Grant. She's exaggerating. Grant said, blushing slightly. I'm just very well off. Robert laughed. Son, it doesn't matter how much money you have. What matters is that you make my daughter happy, and judging by her smile, you're doing a good job. That afternoon, while the Miller family explored Manhattan with Grant acting as their personal tour guide, Scarlett realized her life had completely changed. Not only had she found love where she least expected, but she had also reconnected with her family. And for the first time in a long while, the future felt full of endless possibilities. 6 weeks after the Miller family's visit, Scarlett was in her office at the hotel when a sudden wave of nausea hit her. She rushed to the private bathroom holding her mouth, and when she came back, Patricia was looking at her with concern. "Vice President Costa, are you all right?" This is the third time this week that... Scarlett froze mid-step as a sudden realization struck her like lightning. 3 weeks of morning sickness, unexplained fatigue, and her period was late. "Patricia, cancel my appointments for this afternoon," she said, grabbing her bag quickly. "I need to take care of something urgent." An hour later, Scarlett was sitting in her bathroom at home, staring at 2 pregnancy tests showing the same result. Positive. "Oh my God," she whispered, torn between panic and excitement. "Oh my God, oh my God." She heard the front door open and Grant's voice echo through the apartment. "Scarlett, I'm home. Patricia called me saying you left early." "I'm here," she shouted, still in shock. Grant appeared at the bedroom door. "Are you all right? Patricia said you weren't feeling..." He stopped when he saw her expression and the tests in her hand. "Scarlett, are those..." "Positive," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Grant, I'm pregnant." The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds before Grant crossed the room in 2 strides, picked Scarlett up in his arms, and spun her around the house. "Really?" he shouted, laughing. "Really. Grant, put me down. I'm nauseous." He gently set her on the couch, knelt in front of her, and held her hands. "How are you feeling? Are you happy? Scared? Should we call a doctor? Schedule tests?" "Grant, breathe," she said, laughing at his excitement. "I'm happy. Scared too, but happy." "We're going to have a baby," he said like he was testing the words. "A baby, Scarlett. We're going to have a baby," she repeated, and this time she could feel the full joy of it, without fear. Grant kissed her gently. "I love you so much." "I love you too." The following week, they told Alina, who reacted like she had just won the lottery. She cried, shouted, and immediately started planning how to turn one of the extra rooms into a nursery fit for royalty. That was also the week Melissa Hawthorne came into their lives. Scarlett was having lunch with Grant at a restaurant near Costa Tower when an elegant woman walked up to their table. She was tall, blonde, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than most people make in a month. "Grant Costa," she said with a bright smile. "What a wonderful coincidence to run into you here." Grant looked up, clearly not recognizing her at first. "Sorry, you are?" "Melissa Hawthorne, from Hawthorne Industries. We met at the country club charity event last month." "Oh right, Melissa, this is my wife, Scarlett." Melissa's smile faltered for just a second. "Wife? I didn't know you got married." "Recently," Grant said, taking Scarlett's hand across the table. "How interesting," Melissa said, quickly recovering. "Well, I don't want to interrupt, but Grant, I'd love to talk to you about some business opportunities. How about we schedule a lunch? You can reach out to my assistant," Grant said politely. "She handles all my professional appointments." After Melissa left, Scarlett raised an eyebrow. Who was that? Daughter of the owner of Hawthorne Industries, one of the biggest investment firms on the East Coast. And she seemed interested in more than just business. Grant laughed. "Scarlett, are you jealous?" "Maybe just a little." "Well, don't be. I only have eyes for my pregnant wife." 3 days later, Melissa showed up at Grant's office, unannounced, walking right past the receptionist like she owned the place. "Grant," she said as she entered his office, "we need to talk." "Melissa, you should have scheduled a meeting." "This can't wait," she said, sitting in the chair across from his desk. "Grant, I'll be direct. Our companies together would be an unbeatable force in the market. A Hawthorne-Costa merger would dominate 3 industries. Thanks for the offer, but Costa Tech isn't interested in any mergers at the moment." "What if I said there's more to this than just business?" She leaned in. "Grant, we both know strategic marriages are common in our world. You and I together would be..." "Melissa," Grant interrupted firmly, "I'm married. Happily married." "To who? That girl from the restaurant?" Melissa laughed dismissively. "Grant, be realistic. You need a wife who understands your world, who can complement your business. Someone from your social level. Someone like you?" Exactly like me. Grant stood up. Melissa, let me be very clear. I love my wife. I'm not interested in mergers, partnerships, or any arrangement involving you. And if you can't take no for an answer, we may need to reconsider any professional ties between our companies. Melissa stood up too, her face red with anger and humiliation. You're going to regret this, Grant. When your little wife shows you who she really is, you'll regret it. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Grant took a deep breath and called security, instructing them that Melissa Hawthorne was no longer allowed in the building without his express permission. That same afternoon, Elena Costa showed up at Grant's office unannounced, something she rarely did. Mom, what are you doing here? I heard that snake Melissa Hawthorne came by to bother you today. Grant sighed. How did you find out? Sweetheart, I have eyes and ears all over Manhattan. She stormed out of here and went straight to the club to tell her friends that you rejected her because of some gold digger who married you for your money. She said that about Scarlett? Among other worse things, Elena said, sitting down gracefully. Grant, I need to tell you something about your wife. Grant's heart started beating faster. What is it? Before Scarlett agreed to marry you, I looked into her background, her finances, her history, her family. Do you know what I found? What? She had $5,000 in her checking account, was paying rent on a tiny apartment she shared with a friend, and was working 60 hours a week just to keep up with the bills. If she was a gold digger, she'd be the worst one in history. Grant relaxed, smiling. Mom, I know exactly who Scarlett is. I know you know, but I want you to remember that whenever someone like Melissa Hawthorne questions your wife's intentions, you have my full support to send them packing. Thanks, Mom. Elena stood up and kissed her son on the cheek. Besides, Scarlett gave me something no ambitious heiress ever could. What's that? She made me truly happy. And now she's giving me a grandchild. Elena smiled mysteriously. Oh yes, she told me about the pregnancy. Congratulations, sweetheart. After Elena left, Grant stayed in his office alone, thinking about how much his life had changed in just a few months. He had a wife he truly loved, a baby on the way, and a family that finally made sense. And if Melissa Hawthorne or anyone else thought they could mess with that, they were completely wrong. Grant picked up the phone and called Scarlett. Hey, love. She answered right away. Hi, how are you and our baby doing? A little nauseous but happy. Why? I just wanted to hear your voice, he said, smiling. I love you, Scarlett. I love you too. Always. And as Grant hung up, he knew without a doubt he had made all the right choices in life. The annual Manhattan Business Elite Gala was the most important event on the city's social calendar. Held at the Metropolitan Museum, it brought together the most influential names in business, politics, and society. Grant and Scarlett arrived together, she glowing in a navy blue dress that subtly hid the early signs of pregnancy. Are you sure you're feeling okay? Grant asked for the 10th time as he helped her out of the car. Grant, I'm pregnant, not helpless, Scarlett said with a laugh. Besides, I really want to meet this famous father of yours you've been avoiding talking about. Grant made a face. Marcelo Costa isn't exactly known for being subtle or kind. Just don't take anything he says personally, okay? They walked into the main hall, where hundreds of people moved around among ancient sculptures and priceless works of art. Elena Costa was already there, looking stunning in a gold dress, chatting with a group of high society women. My darlings, she said, kissing them both. Scarlett, you look absolutely stunning. How are you feeling? Better every day, Scarlett replied. Where's Mr. Marcelo? Grant said he'd be here. Elena pointed to the far side of the hall, where a tall, commanding man was talking with a group of businessmen. Marcelo Costa had the same build as Grant, but with a much sterner, more imposing look. There he is, probably discussing how to take over a few more markets, Elena said with a touch of sarcasm. Grant was about to take Scarlett over to meet his father when Melissa Hawthorne suddenly appeared, blocking their path. Grant, she said brightly, what a wonderful coincidence, and Scarlett, right? What an interesting dress. Hello, Melissa, Scarlett said politely. How are you? Very well, thank you. Actually, I was hoping to talk to Grant about that proposal we discussed. Melissa, Grant said firmly, I already told you I'm not interested. Oh, but maybe you'll change your mind when you hear how excited your father is about the idea of a partnership between our families. Before Grant could respond, a deep voice came from behind them. Grant, finally, I need a word with you. Marcelo approached, completely ignoring Scarlett and focusing all his attention on his son. Dad, Grant said cautiously, this is my wife, Scarlett. Marcelo looked at Scarlett like he was seeing her for the first time, which she probably was. Wife? He asked, confused. Grant, what are you talking about? We got married a few months ago, Grant explained. I thought Mom told you. Elena didn't mention anything about a wedding, Marcelo said, clearly irritated, and this seriously complicates the plans we had for you. Melissa stepped forward with a sly smile. Mr. Costa, maybe I can clarify things. Grant and I have been talking about a strategic partnership between our companies, which would also include a personal union. Exactly, Marcelo said, perking up. Melissa, darling, you'd be perfect for Grant. A merger between Costa Tech and Hawthorne Industries would be... Dad, Grant interrupted, raising his voice. I'm already married, to Scarlett, and I'm not interested in Melissa or any business merger. Grant, be reasonable, Marcelo said, lowering his voice but keeping the stern tone. You can't let teenage feelings get in the way of smart business decisions. The room was starting to notice the rising tension. Conversations stopped and people began turning to watch the drama unfold. Scarlett felt her blood boil. Excuse me, Mr. Costa, but your son isn't a teenager. He's a grown man who can make his own decisions. Marcelo looked at her with disdain. Young lady, you clearly don't understand how business works in our family. Actually, said a firm, elegant voice behind them. The one who doesn't understand how business works in our family is you, Marcelo. Elena Costa walked forward with confident steps, wearing an expression Grant recognized as extremely dangerous. Elena, Marcelo said, clearly surprised by his wife's intervention. We were just discussing Grant's future. Grant's future is already decided, Elena said calmly. He's married to Scarlett, they're expecting my first grandchild, and they're perfectly happy. Melissa went pale. Grandchild? That's right, dear, Elena said with a cold smile. Scarlett is pregnant, so your attempts to seduce my son are not only inappropriate, but also completely useless. Marcelo tried to regain control of the situation. Elena, regardless of the fact that Grant is temporarily married. Temporarily? Elena raised an eyebrow. Marcelo, I think you misunderstood. This isn't a temporary marriage, it's a real marriage built on real love. Elena, you're being dramatic. Dramatic? Elena laughed, but there was no humor in her voice. Marcelo, you want to talk about drama? Elena opened her Hermes bag and pulled out a thick envelope. Here's your drama, dear. She handed the envelope to Marcelo, who opened it in confusion. His expression changed drastically as he read its contents. Divorce papers? He muttered in disbelief. Signed, stamped, and ready to be filed, Elena confirmed. Marcelo, after 35 years of marriage, I'm divorcing you. The entire ballroom went silent. Even the waiters stopped serving. Elena, have you lost your mind? Marcelo stammered. On the contrary, I've finally come to my senses, she said calmly. For years I've watched you try to control our son's life as if he were just a chess piece in your business games. But when you disrespected my daughter-in-law and tried to break up a happy marriage for the sake of an ambitious, well, that was the last straw. Elena turned to Scarlett and Grant. My dears, I have a belated wedding gift for you. She pulled out another document from her bag. Grant, Scarlett, with this document I'm transferring all my Costa Tech shares to Scarlett. That means she now controls 55% of the company. Grant was speechless. Elena, you can't do that. Marcelo said, I can, and I already did. Elena replied with a smile. Scarlett, my dear, you are now the majority owner of Costa Tech. Congratulations. Melissa looked as if she were about to faint. Marcelo was red with rage and shock. Elena, this is madness. You're handing over my company to a stranger. Your company, Elena laughed. Marcelo, you seem to have forgotten that Costa Tech was built with my family's money, and Scarlett is not a stranger. She's my daughter-in-law, the mother of my future grandchild, and apparently the only person in this family with common sense. Elena kissed Scarlett and Grant on the cheek. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a new life to begin. She walked out with poise, leaving behind a stunned ballroom, a humiliated rival, an ex-husband in shock, and a young couple who had just discovered they controlled a business empire. Well, Scarlett finally said, looking at Grant, I think our life just got interesting. Interesting is a polite way of saying completely insane, Grant muttered. Grant, Scarlett said, taking his hand, your mother just gave me control of the family company. Are you okay with that? Grant looked at her, then at his father, still frozen in shock, then at Melissa, walking away in humiliation, and finally smiled. Scarlett, if someone has to control this company, I'd rather it be you than anyone else in this room. And as they walked out of the gala together, Scarlett thought that Alina Kotosta was definitely the most spectacular mother-in-law anyone could ever have. On the Monday after the gala that changed everything, Scarlett arrived at Costa Tower at 8 in the morning. As the new majority owner of the company, she had a full schedule, meetings with directors, contract reviews, and one particular task she had been postponing for weeks. Patricia greeted her in the office on the 40th floor, which was now officially hers, with a stack of documents and an anxious expression. President Costa, she said, still getting used to the new title, all departments are waiting for your directives. And, well, there's someone who's been waiting to speak with you for an hour. Bill? Malfada Winters. She said it's urgent, and that she needs to explain herself. Scarlett let out a sigh. Ever since the news of her new position had spread through the company, she knew this moment would come. Malfada was probably desperate now, trying to save herself before Scarlett made decisions about her future. Send her in. 5 minutes later, Malfada walked into the office with a look that was somewhere between nervous and trying to hold on to a last bit of dignity. She wore her best suit and carried a leather folder, like she was heading into a job interview. Scarlett, Malfada began, forcing a smile. Or rather, President Costa. Congratulations on the promotion. Very well deserved. Thank you, Malfada, Scarlett said calmly, motioning to the chair across from her desk. Please, have a seat. Malfada cleared her throat nervously. Scarlett, I came here to clear up a few misunderstandings from the past. I know there were some tensions, but I'm hoping we can move forward and work together productively. Scarlett studied her for a moment. There was so much fear in Malfada's eyes, she almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Misunderstandings, she repeated slowly. Is that what you call deliberate sabotage, false documents, and attempts to ruin my professional reputation? Malfada went pale. Scarlett, yes, there were some conflicts, but... Malfada, Scarlett interrupted gently. Do you really think I don't know you gave me false information before that meeting? That you hoped I'd be fired so you could take my place? Malfada made one last attempt. Scarlett, that's paranoia. I would never. Malfada, I have emails, I have phone records, I have witnesses, Scarlett said, opening a folder on her desk. You weren't exactly discreet when you teamed up with Mark to undermine me. The office fell completely silent. Malfada stared at her hands, visibly sweating. So, Scarlett continued, let's stop pretending this was all just a misunderstanding and deal with the reality of the situation. At that moment, Grant walked into the office. Sorry to interrupt, but Patricia said it was important for me to be here. It is, Scarlett said, smiling at her husband. Grant, you remember Malfada, don't you? Of course, Grant said, sitting next to Scarlett. She's the one responsible for the false documents at the meeting. Malfada tried to defend herself. Mr. Costa, there was a misunderstanding. Malfada, Grant said coldly. Let's skip the part where you try to explain the unexplainable. Scarlett, what's your decision? Scarlett took a deep breath. She'd spent a lot of time thinking about this moment. The vengeful part of her wanted to humiliate Malfada, destroy her career like she had tried to destroy hers. But the more mature part knew that wouldn't make her a better person. Malfada, she said finally, you're fired, effective immediately. Malfada began to cry silently. But, Scarlett went on, before you think this is just revenge, I want you to know I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. Malfada looked up, her eyes red. What do you mean? I mean, I understand where your envy and ambition come from. We both came from similar places. We fought for the same opportunities. The difference is, you chose to tear someone down to move up, and I chose to work hard and trust my abilities. Scarlett, let me finish, Scarlett said calmly. You have talent, Malfada. You're smart, organized, and when you're not trying to sabotage people, you're actually a capable employee. Grant watched his wife with growing admiration. seeing how she was handling the situation with grace and maturity. That's why, Scarlett continued, opening her desk drawer. Here's a letter of recommendation highlighting your administrative skills without mentioning our personal conflicts, and a severance package equal to 3 months' salary. Malfada took the envelope with trembling hands. Scarlett, why are you doing this? Because everyone deserves a second chance, Scarlett said, and because holding on to resentment only hurts the one who carries it, not the one who caused it. I don't deserve your kindness, Malfada whispered. Maybe not, but I deserve the peace of knowing I did the right thing, Scarlett said. Malfada, you have the potential to succeed, but you need to stop seeing other women as enemies and start seeing them as possible allies. Grant leaned forward. Malfada, the envy you've been holding on to has no place here anymore. Scarlett is offering you a dignified way out. I suggest you take it and use it as a chance to grow. Malfada wiped away her tears. You two are better people than I thought. We're not better than anyone, Scarlett said gently. We're just trying to be better than we were yesterday. Scarlett, Malfada said, standing up. I'm sorry for everything, for the jealousy, the sabotage, for trying to destroy something you built on your own merit. I accept your apology, Malfada, and I truly hope you find a place where you can use your talents in a positive way without needing to hurt anyone. Can I ask you something? Of course. How can you not hate me? After everything I did? Scarlett gave her a gentle smile. Because hate is a weight I choose not to carry. And deep down, I know your anger wasn't really about me. It was about a world that made you believe there was only room for one of us. Malfada nodded, clearly moved. Thank you for showing me there's another way to handle conflict. Now, Scarlett said, you have 1 hour to pack your things. Patricia will walk with you to make sure everything goes smoothly. After Malfada left, Grant looked at Scarlett with deep admiration. You were amazing. I was fair, she corrected him. Grant, if I had taken revenge, I would have become just like her. And that's not who I want to be. That's why I fell in love with you, he said, giving her a soft kiss. You always choose the harder path, but the right one. Besides, Scarlett added with a smile, now that she's no longer here causing trouble, I can focus on what really matters. What's that? Turning this company into a place where people like Sophia can thrive, where talent is recognized no matter the last name, and where our child can be proud of the family legacy. Grant hugged her. Our child is going to have the wisest mom in the world. Through the window, they watched Malfada leaving the building with her box of personal items. There was no triumph or satisfaction in the scene, just the closing of one chapter and the beginning of another. You know what's funny? Scarlett said. What? A few months ago, I was just an event coordinator trying to survive in Manhattan. Now I'm here, pregnant, married, running a company, and genuinely happy. My mom always says that when you choose love instead of fear, the universe works in your favor. Your mom is a wise woman, and so are you becoming one. 6 months after the episode with Malfada, Scarlett was in her office at Costa Tower, reviewing the quarterly reports, when Grant appeared at the door with a mysterious look and a bouquet of red roses. Grant, she said, looking over her reading glasses. What are you doing here in the middle of the afternoon? I came to kidnap my wife for a very important appointment, he said with a smile. What appointment? My schedule's full until 6. Patricia already cleared it all, he said, reaching out his hand. Do you trust me? Scarlett looked at her husband, noticing how nervous and excited he looked all at once. 7 months pregnant, she was glowing, and Grant seemed to fall more in love with her every day. Always, she said, taking his hand. They rode the elevator to the rooftop of Costa Tower, a place Scarlett rarely visited. When the doors opened, she gasped. The rooftop had been transformed into a magical garden, with golden lights hanging between potted trees, rose petals scattered on the floor, and a breathtaking view of Manhattan at sunset. Grant, she whispered, what is all this? He led her to the center of the terrace, where an arch decorated with white and gold flowers stood. Scarlett, he said, stopping and turning to face her. 8 months ago, we got married because my mom forced us. It was out of convenience, pressure, and a whole lot of crazy circumstances. Grant, let me finish, he said, smiling nervously. Today I want to marry you again. But this time, out of love, by choice, because I can't imagine my life without you and our family. Grant got down on one knee and pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. When he opened it, there was a stunning diamond ring, simple and elegant. "Scarlett Miller Costa," he said, his voice shaking. "Will you marry me? For real, this time?" Scarlett was crying and laughing at the same time. "Grant, we're already married." "Technically, yes. But romantically, I want to do it right. So will you?" "Yes," she said, throwing her arms around him as best she could with the baby bump. "Of course I will." As they pulled back from the kiss, Elena Costa suddenly appeared out of nowhere, clapping and crying with emotion. "My darlings," she exclaimed. "Finally a proper proposal in this family." "Mom?" Grant laughed. "You were hiding here the whole time?" "Of course. Someone had to capture the moment," she said, waving to a professional photographer who stepped forward discreetly. "Elena," Scarlett said, laughing, "you never stop surprising us." "Darling, life's too short not to celebrate special moments. And speaking of celebrating, how about a real wedding in 3 weeks?" 3 weeks later, Central Park was decorated like a fairy tale. The ceremony was outdoors near the lake, with 200 guests, including the Miller family, who had traveled especially for the event, and practically all of Manhattan's elite. Scarlett was in a suite at the Plaza Hotel, with Lisa helping her get ready. Her wedding dress was an exclusive design that fit her 8-month pregnant belly perfectly, made of ivory silk with delicate embroidery. "You look absolutely stunning," Lisa said, adjusting the veil. "Who would have thought that mess at the cafe would end in a fairy tale wedding?" "Lisa, thank you for being here, for being my maid of honor. For not thinking I'm crazy for marrying the same man twice. Scarlett, you're glowing with happiness. That's all that matters," Lisa said, hugging her carefully. "Besides, how many people can say they were forced to marry and then fell madly in love?" Rachel, Scarlett's sister, walked in carrying the bouquet. "Scar, Dad's downstairs crying because he's walking you down the aisle. Mom's trying to comfort him, but she's crying too." "And Grant?" "Nervous like a teenager on his first date," Rachel laughed. "Elena's trying to calm him down, but I think she's more nervous than he is." Half an hour later, Scarlett walked down the red carpet toward the altar with Robert Miller by her side. Grant waited under an arch of white and gold flowers, wearing a flawless tuxedo and a smile that lit up his entire face. When she reached the altar, Robert kissed her forehead and whispered, "I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Very proud." Grant took Scarlett's hands, and this time, when the officiant asked if they took each other as husband and wife, there were no doubts, no threats, no convenience. "I do," they both said, tears in their eyes and genuine smiles on their faces. When they kissed as husband and wife for the second time, but the first for true love, the entire audience burst into applause. Elena Costa was in the front row, crying openly and whispering to Margaret Miller. "My plan worked perfectly. I knew they were meant for each other from day one, Mrs. Costa." Margaret laughed. "You're a very skilled Cupid." "Darling, call me Elena. We're family now." At the reception, held in the Plaza's ballroom, Grant and Scarlett shared their first dance as a truly in-love couple. The song was At Last by Etta James, and they moved slowly, carefully because of the pregnancy, but completely lost in each other's eyes. "Mrs. Costa," Grant murmured in her ear, "how does it feel to officially be my wife?" "The same as before," she said, smiling. "Only now I have a beautiful ring to prove it. And in a few weeks, we'll have a baby to complete our crazy family." "Grant, are you happy? Really happy?" "Scarlett, 8 months ago I was a lonely workaholic who organized books by color. Today I'm a married man with an amazing woman expecting our first child and sharing control of a company with the smartest person I know. So yes, I'm more than happy. I'm complete." During Elena's speech, she raised her glass of champagne. Scarlett drank grape juice and said, "A few months ago, my son Grant was a very serious man who needed someone to shake up his overly organized life. Scarlett was a determined woman who needed someone who would support her unconditionally. Sometimes destiny needs a little push," she winked, "but in the end, love always finds a way." Lisa gave her maid of honor speech. "I met Scarlett 5 years ago, and I've never seen her as happy as she's been in these past few months. Grant, you've turned my best friend into the most radiant version of herself. And Scarlett, you've turned a serious CEO into a man who laughs out loud and eats pasta with his hands." You two are proof that the best marriages start with the most unlikely stories. When the party ended, it was already early morning. Scarlett and Grant went up to the hotel's presidential suite, exhausted but glowing. Grant. Scarlett said, kicking off her shoes and dropping onto the bed. Our baby's going to be born into a world where his parents met because his mom yelled at his dad, thinking he was someone else. That's quite a story to tell when he grows up. Grant laughed, loosening his tie. Do you think we'll be good parents? Grant lay down next to her, placing his hand on her belly. Scarlett, if we could turn forced marriage into a true love story, we can do anything. That night, while Manhattan sparkled below, Scarlett and Grant fell asleep in each other's arms, knowing they had found something rare and precious, a love born out of chaos, strengthened through adversity, and blossomed through mutual understanding. And somewhere in the city, Elena Costa smiled in her apartment, content in knowing that sometimes, just sometimes, interfering in your children's lives can lead to something wonderful. What did you think of Scarlett and Grant's story? Share your thoughts in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, how would you rate this story? Subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you don't miss any of our stories. And take a moment to check out more heartfelt stories by clicking right here on the end screen.